Nope. Hey, folks, we're live. Oh, no. Yep, we're live, guys. And, guys, welcome back to the Red to Black podcast, now named Gentlemen of Leisure. We've changed the whole focus of our podcast to include living well and never quitting. We're still discussing financial freedom, but we'd like to bring you more of what we're doing in our lives to live well, like hunting, fishing, skiing. And today we're going to talk about, as you can see on the screen, the Mexico Chronicles. We're going to hit LA real estate. We're going to hit Wyoming trip. And we're going to start off with Mario, the co-host of the Mexico Chronicles. So Mario, would you mind taking it away? I'll pull up the map.
Yeah, so I've been working on an adventure rig for the last 10 months and basically taking it apart and putting it back together and getting it as mechanically in integrity as possible. So making sure I can drive it a couple thousand miles without breaking down. I've done a couple trips, Central California wine trip and hunting trip last April. And then I took a trip up to Mammoth Mountain in June and came back for about 1,000 miles. And now I'm going to be driving down to Cabo San Lucas with my nephew to fish striped marlin. So we're going to shoot actually around Tijuana. There's some cartel activity in Tijuana, Rosarita, and Ensenada that the State Department's come out with a warning. So we're going to shoot over to a little border town called Mexicali or Calexico.
Can you see
Yeah,
that
right.
on the screen?
Yeah, you're right on it with your cursor. And shoot down Highway 5 to a little town called San Felipe, which is the first town where you could catch Dorado. They would call it Dorado. Out in North Carolina, we would call it dolphin. In Hawaii, you call it mahi mahi. That's your first little fishing village on the Baja Peninsula, Sea of Cortez, Gulf of California. Next stop, yeah, right there, Warner. We're going to be at Bahia de los Angelos, which is a national park, really beautiful area, really crystal clear water, a lot of scuba diving and fishing, a lot of islands off the coast, really beautiful spot. We're gonna camp out there for a night, and then we're gonna shoot down to our final destination, which is all the way on the East Cape of Cabo San Lucas, called Los Barreros.
Yep, right
Yeah,
there.
Los Barreros, Baja California, and we're gonna go after striped marlin for a couple days down there, and then I'm gonna drop my nephew off at the Cabo San Lucas International Airport, and then I'm gonna cruise back up for a week up the Baja Peninsula by myself. So that's what I've got going on.
Talk to us a little bit about your adventure rig. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Right
Yeah, we'll
there.
post it. We'll post a picture of it. So it's a 1991 Dodge diesel with a 96 12 valve Cummins. It's got a big burly 5-speed manual called an NV 4500, which is the transmission, and then it's mated to an old. It's made between 1970 and 1977 NP 205 transfer case, and then the axles I'm running is a Dana 60 front axle and a Dana 70 rear axle, and I've got BF Goodwrench KO2 33-inch tires, all-terrain tires on it. It's got a front locker.
I'm gonna pull it up as you're talking. Sorry, go ahead.
It's got a front locker, and it's got a limited slip rear posi track locker in it, so it does all right off road. I took it up Kern River Valley on that trip. I took up to Mammoth. I had a buddy who was rafting and kayaking the Kern River, and we wanted to go watch a sunset with his son and a couple of his buddies. So we had two Toyota like Hilux type vehicles and my full size Dodge diesel, and I was able to sort of keep up with the Toyotas. I was able to mechanically climb up and get to the top of this, I don't know, 10,000 feet. I think we were above 10,000 feet, looking all the way over the Central Valley, like across Bakersfield, looking out towards like Santa Barbara, watching the sunset from on top of one of the tallest peaks in the southern Sierra Nevadas, just upside. It's where the Kern River starts. So it did well off road. So that kind of is a rundown of my rig. Been working on it for a couple months now, and I'm going to go test it in Baja.
Yeah, so guys, the whole reason why we were sharing this with you is the whole goal of this channel is how do you live well? How do you live as a gentleman of leisure, which is, I don't have the definition in front of me, but it's an individual that doesn't rely on his own, obviously gentleman, doesn't rely on his own, um, like, let's say active financial income, meaning you're going to work every day and working for that money. You've taken the money that you've built and you've invested it, and it's creating a passive income, meaning you're not really working to create that income. Another business is creating it for you. And there's different
Yeah,
levels. Yeah, go ahead.
there's all sorts of money. Money is just digital nowadays. There's no lack. We get in this scarcity mindset where we think there's a lack of things. There isn't. There is no lack of money. They print it. It literally, it's ones and zeros. There's absolutely no reason to pay W-2 income tax when you can make money in ways that allow you to do adventure travel. And it's a spiritual journey to do these trips. You're getting into nature and you're hitting reset and you're coming back renewed. Sitting in Santa Monica or San Diego, or really I live in Orange County, but it's just this grind of what man has created. It's the houses, it's the buildings, it's the freeways, it's the restaurants. There's some beauty to it, but when you get out into nature, it's what God has created, and it's in integrity, it's clean, it's in order. There's no chaos. You know, yeah, you got to compete for a camping site here and there. Yeah, there's still some of man's creations in nature, but it's a wonderful thing to experience, and creating a little bit of passive income in your life so you can go do these things is a wonderful thing. I would advise guys taking months off at a time and traveling and doing adventure travel, hunts, skiing, fishing trips with W-2 income. Take all that, big fat cake, and then go shove it into a deep. You still there, Warren?
Yes, yeah, you just went out for a second, but what he was saying was build up your cash flow and then take that big, as you call, big fat piece of cake or wheelbarrow full of money, and you just wheel it into the business and say, hey, I'm going to buy your business at 50 cents on the dollar, 25 cents on the dollar, which we'll talk about more in this podcast. We'll do some podcasts on how do you find the best businesses at the right price, because that's key. Because in order to lead a life of leisure, and we're not talking about a life of like, you're just leading a life of happy endings and and like
No, it's about fitness. It's about eating well.
slothful life.
It's about,
Yeah, exactly.
it's about getting up in the morning, having a cup of coffee, reading, having time to read. We don't read enough. We're listening to too many podcasts. And we're not opening physical books. Being able to read your Bible, being able to read some of the great Western literature, and then going to the gym and spending 30 minutes an hour. And there's no rush to get to work to make W-2 income to pay taxes on. Your businesses are, you're checking in. You're checking in on your businesses and your investments, and you're planning out each month something you're looking forward to get into nature. Every month of my year, I'm looking forward to something that I'm going to go get into nature. It might be a trip to Central California to hunt pigs or to taste some wine. It might be a ski trip. It might be a fishing trip with my nephew. Every month I'm planning something on my calendar, and I'm going to go execute it. And it's a spiritual journey, and it's a renewal every month. If you're stuck in an office making W-2 income and being a slave, paying taxes, a wage slave, you're not free to do these trips. You don't have, you're asking 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you went out for a second, Mara, but what you're talking about, that segues into why I like real estate, because when I was in the Marine Corps with Mario's still in, I had a real issue with some of the leadership, because you would rotate through so many leaders depending on what you were doing. And I would look at some of these individuals, and they were 10 years my senior. They were majors or lieutenant colonels or colonels, and I was a captain. I was like, you're making these decisions that, like, there's so many better ways to make this decision. You're making a decision not based on what's really effective. You're making a decision based on your political leanings in terms of inside the organization. And I could not handle that bureaucracy. I had some great leaders, and I had some guys that just drove me up the wall. So when I got out, Mario he's smart. He's like, dude, you got to go get some cash flow. I was like, I'm not going to work for anyone. And I was just like, I'm
But
not
you're just
working.
jumping from one. You're jumping from one firing pan. You're jumping
Yeah.
from one fire pan to another fire pan, and I had a little more autonomy than you did, working in small units, uh, dispersed throughout the world, and going on deployments, basically getting to do adventure travel, although it was combat. I came back with a bunch of cash and invested it. Now you're talk to us about the project you're working in Santa Monica.
Yeah. So the reason I was talking about real estate to finish that up and talk about Santa Monica is the thing I like about real estate, I was thinking about the other day, then I'll get into Santa Monica, is the ability to sort of travel and move because each building or asset is in different areas. And then when you're doing the construction of the building, you're going all over that area, sourcing products, materials, labor. It's a really interesting endeavor because it's just everything is always different. It's not like the same in an office. So in Los Angeles, what we're doing is we have a 20 unit building. Think of like a U-shaped building. In the center, there's a beautiful courtyard, a big Chinese elm tree, beautiful tree. And it's like you access each door to each unit on a balcony. There's not like an interior walkway. So it's really cool. When you walk out your door, you're in this beautiful courtyard. And the building's got it's a mid-century modern building, and that's the design we're going to. So think Frank Sinatra, think Palm Springs, think real clean lines, think like mid-century modern is like simple, clean, old school, and that's what we're going for. And what we're going to do is a mixture of furnished rentals and unfurnished rentals because there's in Los Angeles, we were looking the other night, and there's a huge need for high quality, well designed furnished rentals. And it's this type of stuff, guys, as you start. The thing I like about real estate, the thing I like about equities, what Mario's doing, is once you invest your cash, the right businesses in real estate and in equities, your cash flows start growing and growing and growing. They start working for you. Then what happens is once you have a certain amount of, let's say, you want to distill everything down in cash flow, whether it's real estate or equities, to its base element, its base unit. So in equities, a base unit would be one stock returning a certain dividend. In real estate, it'd be one unit returning a certain amount of money to you. So break everything down into these cash flow blocks.
I'm gonna jump in, Warner, if you
Yeah,
don't
go
mind.
ahead.
For almost the last 97 videos or 94 videos on this channel, we've been telling people not to buy Bitcoin. And all we needed was a little bit of time in order to be proved correct. It has a negative carrying cost. It doesn't pay you to own it, which means you can't go travel to Wyoming. You can't go travel to Hawaii. You can't go travel to Baja California. You can't take a hunting trip to Alaska because it has a negative carrying cost. An apartment building that produces free cash flow enables you to go do adventure travel, to go skiing, to go hunting, to go fishing. Bitcoin has never done that and will never do that. It costs energy. It literally costs energy to keep that digital token alive. It requires energy to
Yeah,
exist. It doesn't produce anything.
and here's a great way to think about it. I want you to think about planting a lemon tree. And imagine just you plant the lemon tree, it's small. You invest, it's equivalent to investing, let's say, $100,000. As time grows, $100,000 becomes 200, 300, 400. As time grows, a lemon tree gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But the equivalent is like if you invest in Bitcoin, your $100,000, it lost, let's just say you invested at 66,000 at the top, it lost 66% of its value or 70%. Now that 100,000 is down at like 33%, 30%, right? And as it's down 30%, now imagine the lemon tree. Imagine you're going out there and you're like chopping limbs off of the tree as it's growing. You're literally like just sawing off limbs to where you only have a few branches with a few lemons and the tree eventually dies. That's the difference between growing a robust, beautiful lemon tree, which I've done before, watering it like every 3 days, watching it grow, pruning it the correct way. It'll produce tons of lemons versus money. which if you invest in the right business and you prune it and you water it and you watch it, it'll grow. Now the key with passive income is, and why I picked the lemon tree, is they're very low maintenance. If you do it, if you just plant it, you give it the right soil in the right spot, you give it the right water. Like I did an underground watering system. All you have to do is little inputs with your stocks, little inputs, check in on them, see how they're doing. Is the company still going well? That's the key to real estate. That's the key to equities. That's the idea of passive income. 99% of people are focusing on appreciation, which means they're trying to make a quick buck. They're not focusing on the long ball game, which is like, hey, I want to start off with one unit. I'm gonna have one unit, which could be a house. I'm gonna rent it out. Then I'm gonna do 3 units, 4 units, right? I'm gonna start off with one stock, which makes money, pays a dividend. Then I'm gonna do 10 stocks. Then I'm gonna do 100 stocks. People don't think this. They're just like, I'm gonna go in. I've done it, dude. I've bought an investment. I'll be honest with the viewers. I bought an investment. I think I put $3,000 in, reverse ETF. It's now worth $100. So that's a negative. That's a loss of, like Warren Buffett said, $2,900. So just as a lesson to investors, don't invest in reverse ETFs, which basically they're shorting the market. And then what they do over time is, I didn't realize this, they reduce your shares. So instead of splitting shares, they're combining shares. And now I start off with like, I don't know, a few hundred shares. Now I have 2 shares. So I had a lemon tree and I was chopping off limbs with that ETF.
Yeah, that's not how you become a gentleman of leisure.
It is not how
You've recovered. You sufficiently recovered, however, Warner. So talk to us about Wyoming. What are your plans this
yeah.
summer for Wyoming?
So basically in Wyoming, we have some real estate out there. We go out there typically in the summertime because the weather is favorable to the eastern part of the state. And specifically, we go into the Bighorns, which is, if you guys haven't been there, it's a beautiful, beautiful range. It's, imagine like kind of like Austrian rolling hills and then big peaks, lots of hunting, lots of lakes, really laid back. It's not like the Tetons, which are like, if you've seen Western Wyoming, they're really, really like austere, jagged. This is more rolling hills, but the peaks are big. I mean, they're tall, big peaks, big wilderness area. And we were going to go out there in this thing called Living Vehicle, but it went hard down. So we're working through that. It's in the shop. And we're
So
going to
what's
do
your
this.
plan B? So Warner, what's your plan B? You're just not going to Wyoming?
No, plan B is reduce the time going to Wyoming because we're working on the real estate asset in LA. And then buy what's called a pop-up tent. It's these tents, you've seen them, they're big boxes and they sit you can put on the top of the car, you can put on the back of the car. So the goal is to put that in one of our vehicles and then take
your fleet of trucks, one of your trucks.
fleet. We have an F-150, a Tundra, all paid off, and a 3500 Dodge Ram, Cummins turbo diesel, high output engine. Each truck is designed to do a different thing. We're also looking at the next purchase is going to be, you got me off on a tangent, but anyways, we're going to go to Wyoming, do some camping, go for a month, check on the other real estate asset, come back. But I'm also looking for an old Ford Bronco.
Nice.
Like, now, the key is here. I looked at some online and they are not cheap. Like the restored
The Icon,
ones.
yeah, the Icons, 100,000. What are they running?
No. 200 to 300.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean they're like hand built nowadays. They're like all aluminum. They're better than it ever left the factory in, I don't know,
No, they put
1966.
these Coyote. I don't know much about
Yeah,
it. But
Coyote. Yeah, they're putting
engines.
Icon's putting in some Coyote motors to them. I'd rather you invest that money into an Earth Roamer, but love to drive.
Let me look this up so I can show the guys a channel or that I found. Give me a second here. It's if you want to take it away for
Now,
a second.
I'll kind of provide some color commentary. If the living vehicle is not able to be put back into integrity, if it's hard down permanently, can you take that cash flow that you get from the living vehicle, selling it or collecting in some insurance, and throw that into a earth roamer, or are you going to go back to a tow rig, or let's say a trailer?
I'm convincing my wife to go to a tow, like a in earth roamer type vehicle, but
Okay.
not the current price, guys. Here's another thing, because before the pandemic, you could get one for like 180,000, like like not, and some would be at 300, but now they like you're going to start at 400,000. So because of the demand for these things, you're going to pay an extra 200, 150, 200,000. I'm like, I don't want to, but hopefully when gas prices go through the effing roof and the economy comes apart, someone's like, I just can't run this thing anymore. I'm getting like 2 miles to the gallon. I mean, you get like 10 miles to the gallon.
8, yeah, I would say 8 to 10.
But yeah, I can't run this thing anymore because it's just too insane. Damn, I want to find this thing. Well, guys, we'll do it on the next podcast. Let's talk about aviation assets and then some ground assets, and I'll pull it
Some
up. I'll
old
tee it.
Broncos.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I like Jeeps. Broncos are super cool. I see
I
some
do
guys
some
cruising around
old
Southern
Broncos.
California in these old. Icon does a really good job, Warner, of restoring old
Tried to find that company. I couldn't find them. Restored
Broncos.
Broncos, uh, Florida. There's a company out of Florida that does. Um, where was this? Oh yeah, Velocity Restorations. Here you go, guys. Well, this is one of them. Let me. Oh yeah, this is it. This is it, guys. I'm gonna do a screen share. I'm gonna pull it up right here. Share the screen. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do this. Let me know if you can see it. Can
Yeah,
you
it's
see
pulling
that?
up right now. Yeah, I got it.
These guys.
So we got Broncos,
Yeah,
and then you got an International Scout. That thing's cool. Oh yeah,
let's
those are cool.
let's look how much these are. Check that price out right there.
What do we got here? 262, 256, 262. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and there's some that are even. I mean, there's some that are at. I mean, I was surprised. I was like that. So that tells me there's a
Which you would
max.
never buy with W-2 income, correct, Warner? If you
Yeah,
again, if this money is just showing up in your life passively through different investments, it's easier to spend other people's money than your own money.
yeah. I mean, look at that one. $267,000. Now I think they're trading for 267 because everyone and their brother wants like they want this type of vehicle. They want off-road vehicle. I don't know if that was what I don't know if this was like an equivalent price back in 2000. Let's say at the bottom of 2008-9 crash or before the pandemic, but $267,000 for you can get an earth roamer for this price. So what Mara and I are talking about, if the passive income is just literally flowing out of you, and you just have like Larry Ellison, and this becomes just like a cheeseburger, that's what you would get. But we would recommend not buying this right now if you're making, let's say, 10 grand extra passive income, even 20 grand, even 30 grand, I mean, even 50 grand passive income, put it into an earth roamer for the same price. Because what do you get out of 267, 700? You don't get a lot of utility. This is when you're at this level of sort of a lack of utility, you want to put it more into assets, get your bases covered, like your get out of Dodge vehicle, your protection. This becomes after you've set all those in place and you have huge passive income, then you can roll into one of these.
Very
That
cool car. Yeah,
yeah.
let's add that to the next podcast. Is let's talk about some hunting rifles and some battle rifles. I think you're in the market. So I think something's going to show up in Wyoming in the next couple of weeks. Correct, Warner?
Yeah. I don't know if I can talk about it on
This channel.
yeah. Yeah. So let me pull that up to remind people. I'll pull it up on we're using this new program called StreamYard. I'll pull it up. There we go. Next podcast is rifles and vehicles. And then after that is going to be let's talk planes because I love planes. Some next pilot Mara's getting into it. He's getting me into rifles and hunting. So there's just so much you can do with these assets. And the main reason why Mario and I like these assets, I think, if I can speak for Mario, is the attention to detail and precision that goes into building these type of assets. It's really like you it's like you have a respect for another craftsman that builds these things, and then you go in and utilize them as a tool. That's
Yeah,
what I
meeting
think
these
I
guys,
can
talking to
appreciate.
them, visiting their shops. It's really cool to see the craftsmanship, the workmanship that goes into some of these high-end optics, high-end rifles, old restored vehicles, even my old Dodge. There's a whole crew of craftsmen that have helped me put it back together and get it in integrity from the transmission axles. I took it up to a place in Orange County called Dynatrax, and they put together the axles for me. And it's just a cool old vehicle with a lot of people that are into the secondary market. There's a whole cottage industry of professional tradesmen that work on these types of old vehicles, you know, high-end optics rifles, hunting, fishing. Just a cool experience to meet these guys and look at what they have dedicated their life to. And it's fun to watch and go on these journeys with these guys.
Yeah, and I'm my goal is to convince Mario to get into real estate. He's kind of backed off a little because of the pricing, but the same thing you're doing with these vehicles is what you do in real estate. It's no different. The only difference is just getting the deals, locking them down. But anyways, that's for another podcast, guys. We're at the end of the podcast here. We'd like to thank you for your time. We appreciate you taking your time. If you've made it this far, we're talking to you guys. You know, to listen to our content, it means a lot to us. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe, like, and comment, because we're creating all sorts of great content to support you to become a gentleman of leisure or an individual that's already a gentleman of leisure. And that's what it's all about, guys. Creating passive income so you can do what you want when you want, also be a benefit to society. You can help others in need. I mean, there's just so many benefits, and we're going to talk about all that stuff. We're going to talk about how you lead this lifestyle. It's a phenomenal podcast. So if you think that's you and you would like to be a part of living well, creating financial freedom, and never quitting at life, you know what to do, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Okay. Thanks again, and we'll talk soon.